Listen, it's bad enough that we live in a world with a whole bunch of humans that at any point can trespass, come into your life and do things you don't want them to do. But what's worse is that when we're the ones doing it to ourselves, pointing the finger at somebody else, we are responsible for most of the crap that we have to solve for in our life.
Walk me through your morning. This morning specifically.
I got up at 4:45 a.m., got myself to the gym at 5 a.m., did 90 minutes of cardio.
What does that mean? Get specific. What do you mean cardio?
That means that I rotated between 6 different machines: rower, bike, sitting bike for RPMs, elliptical, treadmill, incline treadmill, stepper.
Do you have any metric? Like what's your goal with that? Like, are you going for a heart rate thing? Are you?
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 60 to 120 second pushes where I'm just going as fast and as hard as I can, and then I let my heart come down and then I go again. So I oscillate between 130 and 170 heart rate. Yeah. So it's heart training.
Okay.
And then today was chest, so I bench pressed, did multiple exercises. I threw in my legs and abs for fun. I do that 3 times a week. Work a little bit of everything. Listen to a book. Arbinger Institute was a part of my morning power hour, if you care to know about that.
Yes.
Some meditation,
walk me through
prayer.
power hour, specifically what you did.
Do you need all that now unrecorded?
Oh, who said we're not recording?
We're not recording.
Chris, just keep talking to me.
Oh.
What else did you want to do?
Well, I'm racing through this information like you need to know it before we start.
No.
I'm not giving it to you straight.
You're giving it to me straight. What happened next?
All right. Then I want to back up and do it again.
No, Chris, that's the reason I did it this way.
Fine. Anatomy of Peace, Arbinger Institute, great book I read 6 years ago. Just felt inspired to reread it.
You're
again.
rereading it, okay.
So I'm blitzing through that book right now. Took some time for some prayer and meditation to just get clear, take myself through a breakthrough, this morning's breakthrough. This morning's breakthrough was specifically about being in alignment. And there's a couple of things that had brought me out of alignment. And
Are you willing to share what those
marriage,
things are?
dude. In my marriage, I had to realign some things in my marriage with Colleen.
Did you guys fight?
No, so one of my rules is be early, right?
Uh-huh.
So I was seriously pushing myself and her just saying, where are we going to be at in 9 years? We're 14 years into this marriage thing. And in 9 years, we're going to be empty nesters. And who do we have to become today so that we are the most madly in love couple even then? And so we basically made a goal that we're going to spend 90 minutes to 2 hours a day, every day, just doing something together. Something that we can just be totally conscious and present to each other for, and just be fully aligned in with the outcome. Like, for example, my daughter's birthday is on Wednesday. And I said, my 14-year-old daughter loves to make us stuff. Like, she likes to hand make stuff, meaningful things. And I'm like, how about you and I tonight spend a couple hours? We dug around, we found some pictures, and we're basically going to craft her something just as a total expression of love. And while that is a gift for my daughter, for me, the other real gift is just being with my wife and just spending time, because part of that alignment is, dude, I got to a point where I have everything. Dude, I have money, I have flexibility, I have what I want. And if I come home at the end of the day and I don't feel like I have it all on the home front, then all of this feels like a total waste to me.
Yeah.
Feels like a total waste. To the other people, that would maybe be really extreme. But the only reason why I created all this wealth in the first place is because I wanted to create possibility and options for my family. I wanted to give my family a very specific life. And my family's not there. If we're not on the same page, if we're not living life out to our fullest on the home front, then who cares how much money you have? Who cares how much success you have? Who cares how much influence you have? Who cares how much fame you have? Does it really matter? Because I think most people, when they're not hitting peak results, it's because they're suffering privately on the home front. Either it's home front meaning me with my body and how I feel about it, my health. It's me with friends that are dysfunctional and we're fighting about something, or an enemy that I have. It's me and my spouse not being as connected as we really want. It's me having a problem as a parent. When you have those kind of problems, then all of a sudden results everywhere in life suffer. So whenever I meet people that are not at the peak of their game, I'm just assuming you got something jacked up going on at home, and that's okay. That's called being human. But what are you doing about it? So that's what I was doing this morning.
Okay, so and you spend time that was the breakthrough you got from your power hour.
My breakthrough from my power hour said
family.
specific instruction, be a leader. Don't wait to receive, go get it. Which was specifically like the specific outcome of what needed to shift was just having time with my wife.
I love it. You know, we hear these,
But careful though, not time with my wife. I could take my kids to Disneyland, spend all day with them, and at the end of the day feel disconnected.
Yes.
Activity is not what creates connection. It's intentional consciousness that desires to create that connection that matters.
I took 2 of my daughters on a daddy-daughter date on Saturday, and before we went, my middle child came up to my wife, and then she's like, "Hey, Carson, you gotta deal with this," because she said, "I want to do this daddy-daughter date, but I'm afraid Dad will be on his phone the whole time."
Yeah.
And that was like a slap in the face, and that's what you're talking about. Is she's like, "You can spend time with me, but if you're not actually connected, what's it worth?"
And I call it conscious presence. So actually, I'm going to my journal right now. This is the verbatim what my breakthrough actually was.
Love to hear this.
It was, I need conscious presence of yes energy combined with novel activities every day, combined with an infusion of flirtatious sexual energy. When I get those 3 things, it hits my need for variety. It helps me feel the level of connection I want. And I feel that newness of our love, even though we've been married for almost 20 years.
And how does that match with sort of Colen's expectations in a relationship?
So Clint and I have a rule in marriage. And the rule is advocate for each other's needs. We don't negotiate. It's not, well, I guess you win sometimes and then I win sometimes. And when you lose, it sucks. But hey, that's part of marriage. I don't subscribe to that paradigm. For me and for her, we have a different rule. Find out what your spouse wants and then do everything in your power to give that to them. As long as it's not wrong, unethical, immoral, do everything in your power to give that to them. So we mutually live that rule, which means that we're asking, like, at this chapter of my life or who I am today, what do I need? And so we communicate those needs. So literally the language is Kris needs ... It's not Colen needs. It's not what we need. This is me. And she wants to know that. How can she give me what I need if I can't even communicate it to her? So we get clear with each other on that stuff.
So where I'm going with this is...
I have no idea where you're going.
I know. This is amazing, Kris. So you worked out, you read, you spent some time in your power hour. Then what'd you do?
So I had that breakthrough. I read in my book, did my meditation, connected with my wife, did my workout. That's my power hour. I basically, I'm awakening my mind with what I'm reading because I'm basically saying, hey, there's lessons from the great ones. People who have stood on the shoulders of giants, and I want to learn from them. And the easiest access is through books, podcasts, their content, however they syndicate it, right? I look for mentors and people that I want to learn from, and then I exact that knowledge every day. Number 2, I got to wake up my body, because if I'm not in command of my body, then I'm screwed. I'm going to have weak moments during the day. I'm going to have a slice of pie put in front of me. I'm going to be out of energy because I forgot to eat a meal. And there's nothing worse than being on purpose in a moment when you have something to do and you don't feel all that physical sustaining energy because you didn't take care of yourself. So I wake up my body and I remind it, I'm in charge of my body. This is mine to beast. I'm in charge of you. I have a stewardship. This body is a temple and I need to act on it. And then lastly, I wake up my emotional self by making sure that I'm in command of all of my emotions by asking where my vulnerability is today. Where, if I was going to have an emotional breakdown, meltdown, hissy fit trigger, what would it be? And I'm going to find it before it can even present itself, and I'm going to destroy it. And what came up today was, dude, you need to realign yourself with your wife. And then I got that specific instruction, wrote it down, connected with her. She agreed we're good.
Okay. Was this morning an anomaly?
This is every morning.
This is your average?
No, this is every morning. This is usually 2 to 4 hours every single morning. Because I found, what's the purpose of going out and working? What's the purpose of going out to achieve or accomplish something if you don't have your shit together? So this is what I do to actually pull it together and say, listen, I don't have everything figured out. So I had this moment with Kevin Hart, and I was in a small room. People had paid a high ticket price to be there. We didn't know he was going to be the guest speaker. And I remember just taking voracious notes. And Kevin said, you have to live your life in such a manner to meet negativity, which surely will come, with reinforced positivity. Which means you've got to reinforce your positivity before the negativity shows up, or else you're unprepared. That's like going into the battlefield without a weapon, or without a shield, or without armor, unprotected. And that's what most people do. So I take 2, 3, 4 hours to armor up every morning and get myself ready. I don't know what's going to happen, but beyond being prepared for whatever crap's going to hit me in the face, I'm here to achieve and win and connect and also receive fulfillment. Like, I want to have it all.
So Kris, you are an individual who has achieved results that most people don't see in their life. And I believe it's because of habits. In fact, that's what we're talking about today is habits, right? Yeah. And so I love hearing about your morning because I think you do your morning different than most people. And it's not a one-time thing. It's a habitual thing. In fact, I think even some of the habits we discussed in the last episode, you kind of checked off on just how you run your morning. I mean, look at this. Be early. Mm-hmm. What's your morning all about, Kris?
Dude, it starts early, and it's about being prepared so that wherever I'm supposed to be, I'm early, either mentally or I'm prepared, and dude, I'm ready to knock it out of the park.
I mean, when you talk about overcoming hardships before they're even presented, to me, I'm like, holy crap, you really are.
Dude, everyone should step back and imagine every possible worst case scenario thing that could ever happen to you, and then ask, what kind of man or what kind of woman am I going to be if that were to ever happen?
The next habit that we talked about in our last episode was respond quickly. How long did it take you to, once you got this sort of inspiration, how long did it take you to go talk to Colleen about it?
Dude, same morning. Yeah, it's
you didn't put it off. You didn't spend time thinking about it.
No. Most people don't understand that they have to make. When you reverse engineer someone, for example, that grows a massive company or becomes a multimillionaire, when you take that magic moment, that feat of success, and then just say, "Wow, how many decisions did it take in hindsight now that you've arrived to get there?" And I think that most of these, if you're gonna deserve a huge accolade for some huge great achievement, there's undoubtedly thousands, maybe tens of thousands of decisions that got you there. And most people are slowpokes. They're never going to get anywhere. They're never going to have the success they want because they make decisions so freaking slow. I'm like, dude, you should always take as much time as you need for whatever decision you're making, but you also need to know when that is. And most decisions have a deadline of now or in the next hour or before the end of the day. And if you're allowing the majority of your decisions to go past a day, then you're going to stockpile in a short period of time a whole bunch of decisions that you're late on, so that, dude, I don't care what your goals are. You're going to be so far off base. You're going to get discouraged, and then you're going to give up. And you didn't know it, but it's because that you make decisions so freaking slowly. You don't have a method. You don't have a process. You don't have a deadline, and you don't have the integrity to follow through.
Well, and I think a lot of people are actually waiting for the world or the universe or whatever, a boss, a spouse, to be the one to make the decision.
They're being acted upon versus acting.
Right. They like that, but then they complain about the results or the consequences that come when someone else is in the power in their life.
Yeah. And I don't want to give anyone any power that was meant to be mine. Listen, it's bad enough that we live in a world with a whole bunch of humans that at any point can trespass, come into your life and do things you don't want them to do. But what's worse is that when we're the ones doing it to ourselves, pointing the finger at somebody else, we are responsible for most of the crap that we have to solve for in our life.
Okay, the next habit, number 3, follow through.
Yeah.
Did you have any follow through this morning?
Yeah, my wife and I made a plan, and it's on my calendar. Tonight between 7 and 9 p.m., we know exactly what we're doing tonight. We also looked at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we said we'll figure out the weekend when we get there.
Do you have commitments to your body?
Yeah.
And you follow through each morning on those commitments?
I don't follow through on all my commitments with my body. I had ice cream last night. It was not supposed to have.
Kris Krohn had ice cream last night. I
did, but remember.
Oh no! What's the world coming to?
But ask me what my consequence was.
What was? Oh,
2 hours of cardio. Guess who was up at 4:45 this morning? And I did 2 hours of cardio.
You did the follow through then on your consequence.
Dude, if you don't follow through on your what do you have?
Right.
Listen, if you
Zero integrity.
If you let yourself off the hook, there's this one thing. I don't even think it's one of my rules. It's called integrity. And everyone's got a different definition. I think most people are like, oh, integrity means honesty. No. Integrity means to do what you say you're going to do. And so the moment you say you're going to do something and you don't, you have lost one of the most fundamental character traits that can make you a dependable, reasonable, responsible human being capable of success.
Integrity. I would put that right. I'd put that in the habit of follow through. I think that is integrity, is your willingness to follow through on the things you say you're going to do.
It'll be in the book.
It will be. Okay, be positive. Did you spend time being positive this morning?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, the whole process of breakthrough is about claiming emotional dominance over your life. It's deciding ahead of time how you're going to react to things positively, because positive people, they're solution-oriented people. People that are negative, the moment there's a problem, and they will come, they get stuck. They're like, we have a problem. I'm like, dude, get over it. What's the solution? How are you going to deal with this? Are you going to revel in it? It's like pissing in the wind. Have you ever pissed in the wind?
Yes. When I was a kid on campouts, it doesn't
Dude,
work out so well.
I have this puppy.
Yeah.
And this brand new puppy, I'll take my dog out to go pee early in the morning, but late at night, I have to keep it on its leash. Because if my dog gets away, it's going to go play in the dark, run through the forest for like 10, 15 minutes, and then eventually I got to go and get it. So at night, that dog pees on a leash. Well, it was peeing, and I decided I had to pee. And you know what? This is my land. So I decided to take a piss. And the dog got so curious, it kept sniffing my piss, which meant it kept going under the street. I pissed all over my dog. The fire hose was going everywhere, and I could not hit my dog. It was so frustrating. Pissing in the wind. Stop it. Just have integrity.
I think there's a lesson somewhere in there, Kris.
I'm not sure.
We'll let the listeners decide that. The fifth habit we talked about in the last episode is grow. And I already know the answer to this. Did you grow this morning?
Well, listen, this morning was about reminding myself about lessons that I had learned in a book that I really enjoyed. And when it came time to start a new book, I did, and I wasn't feeling it. And so I decided to go back to a classic. And studying the masters doesn't mean reading or listening to the masters. It means studying. So sometimes I will only listen to a book long enough to come across a passage I really like, and then I will listen to it again and again and again, because I want exact meaning. Listening without comprehending without acting shows still like an early approach to life where you're not even hardly the student. You're just unconsciously going through life as one of its zombies, like many people are, like I used to be.
So, Kris, I took a risk. I didn't prepare you for the questions I was going to ask.
I didn't know we were recording.
And I did that intentionally because I wanted to see something. I wanted to see if your morning habits, your habitual routine would line up with the things that you're teaching in this book that you're preparing to write, in the show that we're sharing with people. And I had a sneaking suspicion that it would, but I wanted to do this sort of Kris Krohn experiment and just see. And actually, as you started talking about how your morning went, I was just blown away, because I think it's very easy to teach things that we know are good, but we don't live ourselves.
And the reality, Carson, is habits are hard to form. You can't, years ago, I was in one of my masterminds and I decided to teach my favorite 30 habits. And at the end of it, someone came up to me and said, there's no way you're living all 30 of these habits. And I think what they were really saying, they were imagining in their mind that they were going to have to tackle all of these at once. And I was like, no, I'm giving you a lineup for the next 5 to 10 years. My experience of most people is that when you start doing something that you're not accustomed to, that you're not habituated to, it's out of your comfort zone, it's uncomfortable, it's hard, maybe it's not fun. And this game of repetition, doing it again and again and again, is often what it takes with, by the way, psychobabbling your mind into, I love this, I want this thing I hate doing, until you finally get to a point where it's like, this is good and this is now me. Like, I can't imagine, I go to the gym either 5 or 6 times a week. It's usually 6. If it's 5, it's usually because I drop out, because my body's like, bro, you gotta chill. You gotta, you get to sleep in because you've been freaking revving the RPMs at 10,000. You need to come down. And I'll be honest, on those mornings, I'm like,
you miss it?
Oh, I totally miss it. But there was a time when going to the gym was like the hardest thing to figure out. I don't know how to not do most of these habits right now anymore. It would be foreign now.
Let me ask you something, Kris. How much of that desire, that love of the thing that used to be hard, how much of that comes because you've gotten results? How much does that change your feeling about the activity?
I don't actually believe that it's allowed to necessarily be results driven.
Yeah.
Because often my experience at least is that to get the result takes sometimes such a long time. Like we're talking a game of discipline that is not 3 days or 30 days. Some of the ways that I've won have taken years, which means you have to find a way to enjoy it, not just accept it, but enjoy it before it actually delivers a result. Some things in life that are the most worthwhile will not bear fruits for a really long time. They're like oak trees.
Okay.
They take decades.
So this will fall under what you would call the law of gestation.
Things take long to gestate. Big things take long to gestate. Small things take a small time to gestate. You want to make that it's amazing to me that when my wife and I had chickens, that it's like every day this thing poops out an egg. This is amazing. How does this device work? It's actually cultivating 6 eggs all at once at different phases. So technically when it actually lays the egg, it's showing you the byproduct of something that it started 6 days earlier. And everything that you want in life, like an egg is a small thing, so it doesn't take much to gestate. Mm-hmm. But if you're like, I want to double my income this year, or I want to become a millionaire, I'm like, okay, well, listen, sometimes people get lucky, but my experience in most, and I mean 99 point whatever percent of situations, that result, big results, are a byproduct of a lot of discipline over an extended period of time, proving your ability to stick with certain things repeatedly that are good for you. So I'm now more in love with forming a habit that I know will be good for me 10 years from now and 20 years from now. And I'm going to fall in love with it today. And I'm going to find a way to enjoy it, even if the fruits seem really small in the beginning.
I love this. So last week we discussed these 5 habits, and we're going to give you 4 more today.
Yep.
Be early. Respond quickly. Follow through. Be positive and grow. And Kris, super impressed with how you spend your morning. In fact, I'm a little bit jealous. That sounds really amazing, but I also know that it can be hard to develop that habit. But a bit ago in a training you were doing, I jotted down this quote, and I share it actually with all our new employees that come on board. And I can't tell you how many of them scramble for a notebook to write this down when I share it. But Kris, the thing you said was, the things we do on a consistent daily basis define who we will become.
Yeah. Destiny. Destiny is not fate. It's created. I believe it's co-creation with God. We've been given capacity with our agency. One of my sons is handicapped to some extent with a mild version of autism. It used to be really severe, got a doctor, were able to bring that down, but his opportunities in life are limited. And sometimes I think we label people as either, you're in the genius category, you're in the average category, you're the below average category. And the reality is, on some spectrum, we all have gifts and we all have limits. And we're all trying to figure out what to do to make the most of what we have, what we've been given, and what we can cultivate. And I think that's a big part of this understanding that your destiny, it's really limited by how conscious we can become to desire good things that fulfill purpose. And that creates fulfillment, which is the only thing that we're all really after, which is why poor people can be on their deathbed completely fulfilled, and rich people can be on their deathbed completely miserable. It's not about what did you produce. It's about how you felt about what you produced. It's about how you felt about your choices. So who we become in the process of achieving is more important than the achievement itself, which means that we have to master the journey of fulfillment before it would even be worthwhile to value significance, success, achievement, huge results.
I've heard you say it before from stage, actually. When someone says, I want a nice car, I want a mansion, I want to make $1 million, what they're actually saying is that when they envision themselves with that thing, they attach to it a feeling.
Yeah.
They assume that they'll feel a certain way about themselves once they're in that situation. And that's really what they're after.
I had this amazing experience. BMW came out many years ago and they said, we're finally going to take one of our concept cars, one of our crazy, futuristic, you're only going to see it in a James Bond movie, and we're actually going to produce it.
The i8.
And I remember when they came out, they're like, we are going to create a limited production of the i8. And in that moment, I've owned multiple BMWs. I'm super German.
You want the
German within me
BMW.
that just has to know, but that's not the Volkswagen. That's not a vehicle of the people. That right there, they call it the ultimate driving machine. I wanted one. And they said, great, put your name on the list. 2 years waiting list, give us a deposit. So I did so. And they had come out with this commercial that I fell in love with. They had hired, trying to remember the name of that Beats company that created this custom song. The only place you can download it is the ad. So I had to rip it from the ad, and I ripped this ultimate beat, and I watched the ad over and over again. And for 2 years while I waited for that car, I would listen almost every day to the music and the beat. And as I did, I saw myself in the car, and I'm telling you what, I was driving 170, 200 miles an hour. I was enjoying every bit of that car. Carbon fiber frame, the door, suicide doors that actually, the Falcon doors that go, up sideways. I enjoyed every bit of this car. And I'd become so emotionally attached, not to the car, but to literally just driving it in my mind. Because Wayne Dyer had once said before, rest in peace, Wayne, he said, anything that you really want in life is already available in your mind. So why not actually enjoy the pleasure of it now? Because if you see yourself envisioned, encircled by that which you want, you can first of all train your subconscious mind to literally feel as if it's already present and that life would only make sense when you actually get it in the real world. So it's this law of attraction, everything coming together, basically making this goal a reality. So I was enjoying the BMW. One day, I had this funny feeling. My wife was on a girls' trip out in California. I was in charge of the kiddos, and I had this funny feeling. Kris, you need to drive 2 cities over to BMW right now. So I said, kids, get in the car. And they're like, wow, Daddy, are we going to the carnival? I'm like, we're going to a car something. So we get in the car, and we drive to the BMW shop, and I pull up, and right there in the front glass window, only loaded up 1 hour earlier, was the exact trim of the BMW i8 that I wanted, all black with the blue trim. And I walk in, and they're like, oh yeah, we were just about to go through the list of everyone we're supposed to call to sell this. And I said, well, I'm somewhere on that list, and I will buy it right now. And I remember calling up my wife, and I said, hey, I'm buying this car. And she's like, no, you're not. You got to wait till I come home. And I said, honey, I love you. I hung up on her. I went and I bought the car. And that night, I'm sitting in this car. I plug in, I get my phone connected, and automatically, sometimes when you get in a car, it automatically just start playing a song. I got hundreds of songs I like. It automatically started playing that BMW song, and I started tearing up, and I had the same feeling that I had practiced for 2 years. I became the owner that day, but I became the driver 2 years earlier. And in our life, everything that we want, we're capable of having if we can get ourselves into the right emotional state. So I've been a billionaire, not in real life, but since January 15, 2009, when I declared it for the first time. And every time I'm in the mind palace of my mind, I'm a billionaire. And it's because I want to make $1 billion and I want to give $1 billion. And I'm doing that. Every year I'm giving more money than I did the year previous. So I don't know how we got off on this tangent, Kris, but somehow it circles back to what we're talking about.
This is so good. I've heard you speak from stage for the past 7 years so many times. I feel like I've heard all of your stories. I've never heard the BMW story.
There you go.
That's freaking amazing. Okay, standout habit number 6. Real quick, if you want to dive deep into the other 5, check out our episode from last week. But habit number 6, create solutions instead of focusing on the problem.
There's some words that are exiled in my home that we're not allowed to use. And my children know these words. For example, they're not allowed to use the word bad. Because once you accept bad as a building block of a word that you can use, then every time something doesn't go well, you insert the word bad as a descriptor. And before you know it, you say things like, oh, I'm having a bad day. Have you ever noticed that the moment you determine that you're having a bad day, that worse things keep happening until you go to bed? And it's because literally our mind is biased to search for what we're looking for. If bad is a word that you can use, then you will search for bad and you will find it every single time. Well, I understand this about perception. So I've got another rule in my house that we're not allowed to use the word problem. And the reason why is because some people get stuck once a problem emerges and they can't move past it. And people that get stuck with their problems, I've seen them stay stuck literally till their deathbed. They never get over it, and it's because it's what they focus on. They create a life around it. They create a story around it, and they enroll people in it. So this habit is called create solutions instead of focusing on problems.
When my dad was teaching me how to drive at a young age, I remember sitting on his lap. We were on this desert road, totally vacant, and he's having me drive while he did the pedals.
Yeah.
And I was driving and I kept kind of leaning towards the center line.
Yeah.
And he kept having to like correct me. And he finally says to me, he's like, are you looking at the center line? I'm like, yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it so that I don't. And he's like, look where you want to go.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't think he was trying to be super deep. He was literally teaching me how to drive.
Right. He's
But
like,
it was
don't hit
true.
other cars.
Yes. He's like, if you look where you don't want to go, your body naturally starts to head that direction.
Yeah.
And it's a metaphor for life.
What we think about, we bring about. The mind, the optic nerve, takes in 20 billion bits of information every second, and yet can only consciously process 200 to 400 of them.
Which means your mind is processing and saying yes, no, yes, no.
And which also means that our mind is capable of really finding anything we could ever want to look for, but its bias says, I'm going to look for what I'm searching for. So most people, by the time they were 16 years old, had been told 50,000 times, no, don't, can't, shouldn't, because frankly, kids need to hear those words. However, we also understand the science that it takes 5 positives to eliminate a negative. Most people emerge from childhood, even if you had good parents. We emerge from childhood as relatively negatively biased human beings, which means that our perception is focused on problems. We want to find out what's wrong with the world. You take now a pessimist, a realist, a skeptic. These are individuals that have just practiced it so well that they now think it's a part of their identity. And yet we're not our thoughts, we're not our ideas. We just convince ourselves that we are. And frankly, we think more about the things that we focus on. So if most people understood, honestly, if all people understood the power of a negative thought, I think they would do everything in their power to avoid it. So problem is so there's some words like problem or bad that we can blow out of proportion and basically hijack our hippocampus and our reticular activating system, basically saying, please only put in my perception bad, problems, and negativity.
Well, and I think there's a component to it that takes this principle and puts it on steroids. And that is, we don't just bring about what we focus on, but the things we feel strongly about, I think we focus on 10 times more. So if you feel rotten about something, you're going to focus on it. Like you're going to quadruple your efforts to focus on that thing.
And if you think that scientifically we're having 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and the question is, what thoughts are we recycling over and over again? The most traumatic moments of our life from childhood. By the way, children either have actual or perceived traumas. None of us escapes childhood without perceiving a ton of things that we basically say are bad, wrong, evil. And because we deemed these experiences, traumatizing, it's now permanently embedded in our mind as something that we look for because we're trying to avoid pain without realizing that we're attracting more of it in our life. For example, over the years as I've worked with people come to me like, Kris, make me money, like help me have crazy success in business or real estate or help me in my marriage. And I always get to I've got to go to a belief structure level. And I can't tell you how many times when I'm helping someone make money that struggles with money, that inevitably there was a moment in life when they wanted to buy something as a kid and mom or dad was there and said, we can't afford that. And when a child really, really wants something like children are capable of, I really wanted that pair of shoes, and a parent says we can't afford it, that actually can create a perceived trauma. The child will get so sad or angry or just really distressed over this issue. And guess what? They're really hardening into fact. They're using their imagination to now, every time they want something, there's now a possibility that presents itself first, which is, we can't afford that. And then we reinforce it our entire life. And then they're like, why am I broke? Why can't I break through the ceiling? Why can't I increase my financial barometer? Why can't I have more? It's like, well, you've only practiced thousands of times this idea that you can't and that you shouldn't, that you won't, that you're not worthy. We have these belief constructs in our mind, and one of them is problems. We look for problems, we focus on problems. So remember the whole reason why I wrote this book in the first place, it's about standing up from the crowd, but it's about, if you're a business owner, actually becoming successful instead of just getting by. And if you work for somebody else, it's getting a promotion, it's getting a raise. And if you really want to stand out, then be that one person that focuses on solutions instead of problems. I got 2 types of employees that will come and jam with me. The first one says, Kris, we have this problem. And they just want to sit and talk about the problem. I have another one that comes and says, Kris, here's something that I'd like to do. And I'm like, well, this sounds like an interesting idea. Where did this come from? It's like, well, we had this thing come up. We perceived it as a problem, and then we made a list of 5 things that would counteract it. And I wanted to share those and get your opinion on what you thought was best. And I'm like, guess who is promotable? The person that solves problems is the person that always says, I've got upward mobility. That's the person that you want to put into leadership. That's someone that you can see your dreams in them, they can see theirs in you, and you guys can go places. But give me someone that's problem focused. And when they focus on problems, what they're really saying is, I've hit my limit. This is my ceiling. I can't go higher. And at the root, that's my disgust with negativity. At the end of the day, if you're like, well, I tolerate some level of negativity, what you're really saying is, I got it. I don't need to grow anymore. I'm happy where I'm at. And that, in my book, is a kiss of death.
I've always felt like most things we describe as problems are actually opportunities. Because being the hero that steps in and solves the problem, suddenly you have the opportunity to stand out from the crowd. It's a chance to show.
It's empowering too. Feels good. It feels good. My wife called me up a few years ago. I was in Sun Valley. I was snowboarding. I was doing some business. And I was in this conference with Tony Robbins. My wife calls me up and she is freaking out. It's early in the morning. She says, Kris, we have a huge problem. And my wife knows that we don't use that word.
The P word.
The P word. So like, honey, what could possibly be wrong? I'm positive it's okay. By the way, I already decide no matter what the problem is, like what's embedded in my brain that I put there is, spoiler alert, everything ends great. Like there's just a spoiler alert that everything's gonna end great. So my wife calls me up, there's a massive problem. I'm like, fine. Tell me what it is. She says, Kris, the house is flooding. Like there was a loose pipey thingamabobber, and then it flooded the main kitchen. It went down into the basement. It flooded the basement. Like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? And I started laughing. I started genuinely laughing right there on the phone. She says, she got mad. She's like, excuse me, why are you so happy right now? I'm like, honey, you've been telling me for like the last several months that you want to like refresh the house with a remodel. Now you get the insurance company to fit the bill and give you a fresh remodel, new paint, new flooring, everything you want. And she thought about it for a moment. And she said, it's still not that funny. I said, go downstairs with the kids and go play in the puddle. Learn from your children. They know how to do this so well. Turn it into a game. Just play and have fun. Because you know what? At this point, there's not really anything you can do about what's happened. And it'll all be addressed. And by the way, we pay our insurance. So guess what? This is beyond a deductible. This doesn't cost us anything. Like for me, this is like $1,000, $100K remodel. Thank you. Like, how is this bad? And I get it, right? Like I'm looking for the silver lining. But it's because Napoleon Hill, I read this in one of his books, in one of his mastery courses. He says, with every negative experience in life, and I'm paraphrasing, with every negative circumstance comes a seed for equal or greater opportunity for good. In other words, really honestly, whatever's going down in your life that you think is so end of the world, it is actually, if you go into it with the right energy and the right attitude, there's a way for you to come out on top better than before. I want to layer one more thing on this. This is a little bit personal, but I believe in God, and I do my own fair bit of study of God, and I like reading books about God, and I like learning. And something was once pointed out to me last year that really made an impact on me. And it's all under this philosophy that the purpose of life has a purpose, and that I believe the purpose of life is to grow, because growth takes fulfillment. Have you ever looked back and realized that some of the most pivotal, important growth in your life could have only come through your afflictions, through your sorrows, through your suffering? Which means that when something negative happens, at first, it's like getting slapped. If you clap your hands really hard together, do it right now. Make it hurt. There's this initial sting, right? Yeah. It doesn't feel good. But guess what happens? It's pain this moment, and within a minute or two, you won't feel it anymore. What we do, however, as humans, is we create suffering that follows pain. Suffering is optional. I learned this from Byron Katie. Suffering is optional, Pain is inevitable. You're going to stub your toe on accident. Someone's going to punch you in the face, or maybe they're going to emotionally punch you with saying something that you don't like. Like, pain is a part of life. But we are all left to our own interpretation. Viktor Frankl survived concentration camp. I'll never forget when I read
Man's Search for Meaning.
In Man's Search for Meaning, that everything can be taken from you, except one thing: your ability to choose your attitude in any given circumstances. And all I'm saying is that I get it, shit happens. But when it happens, are you going to focus on it? You want to roll around in it? You want to play in it? You want to take a dip in the pool of feces, as so many do? You want to turn it into a game of victimhood? You want to get significance from getting people to like try to comfort you in all of your sorrows and woes? Or are you going to rise above it? Pull yourself out of the pool of feces and instead ask, what's the lesson and how is this good for me? How is this helping me? What am I learning? I guess in the end, Carson, I think what I've learned to value more than anything is beyond a result is the lesson. And I think we are focused on the wrong things. I'm not just talking about materialism. I'm not just talking about the things that I want in life. I think that we even get addicted to our ability to act powerfully and produce something that we want. And I'm saying, man, do you know how many times you have to fail before you get that thing? You've got to be willing to appreciate the lesson before you can predictably produce the result every single time. Every single time. So if you want that, you might have, for this big ask, 1,000 lessons to learn. For this small ask, it's gestational is like eggs in a hen. You might have to learn 3 lessons. Someone that's trying to figure out how to get to 6 figures or $1 million for their very first time, and then double it, and then $2 million or $10 million. Like, if we're using money is easy to measure. Like, there's lessons you have to learn to be able to produce that. And it all comes back to what I was saying earlier about decision making. People that effectively produce rock star results have to be not just positive, but solution minded. And those two go hand in hand.
So you see that being lesson focused and looking for the lessons everywhere will help you be solution minded instead of focusing on the problem?
Well, listen, we want things in life, right? Even outside of problems. Like, I'm proactively trying to get this thing that I want. And I'm trying to lose 30 pounds. I'm trying to put on 10 pounds of muscle. I'm trying to get a raise or a promotion. I'm trying to start a business. I'm trying to, patch it up with my sweetheart. Whatever it is that we want, that we're going after, you always have a choice. You can focus on what is working or you focus on what's not working. Ultimately, we're always creating. We are always creating, and you can't stop it. You're either creating what you want or you're creating what you don't want. You're either saying yes to the wrong things or no to the right things, or the inverse of that. So at the end of the day, for you to become the person that you want and to love that journey, I believe you have to learn at some point to go through this rite of passage of understanding that positivity has its merits over negativity by far, and that focusing on solutions instead of problems will take you further faster. And we all have goals and dreams, and most of them are big. So if you really want to see them actually happen, you better get on board with getting over your crap. You got to get over what isn't working. You got to get over what someone did to you. You got to get over the person you can't forgive. You got to get over what happened at work last week. You got to get over the decision of your manager. And you got to ask yourself, how do I get back in the cockpit where I get to make decisions and act again? Positive people or calm people. Calm people can be far more creative, and they'll find solutions far easier.
Habit number 7, standout habit number 7, report out.
Reporting out versus reporting in. This was actually relatively something new that I learned. I used to think of it as micromanagement, and someone gave me a very different frame up. It was Keith Cunningham. Went to one of his events in Texas, and he created a new frame up around this idea that I loved. I've always prided myself in being a responsible person that will always report to people where I'm at on my commitments. And I do it proactively. I don't want anyone to reach out to me and say, hey, where are we at with that? To me, that's a freaking slap in the face because they're following up. And if they're following up, it means that I have not reported into them. And so this is the way Keith Cunningham framed up report in versus report out. Report in means you proactively communicate your status update on what your projects are that you're working on. And reporting out is when your manager or your spouse or your coach comes to you to get an update. And that is called micromanagement, AKA babysitting. And I don't think anyone likes to be micromanaged. I don't think anyone likes to be babysat. But the reality is, if you want to stand out from the crowd, if you want to give yourself a raise, a promotion, or if you want to do better in your business, then you have to learn to ultimately be accountable and responsible to your commitments. So someone emails to me today and asks me a question that I can't possibly give them an answer on. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to immediately get a response back to them and say, thank you for that request. This is what it's going to take for me to get you that information. And I'll follow up with you on Thursday. Well, first of all, I reported back to them so they weren't sitting there for Thursday for 3 days wondering if I was ever going to show. So all of a sudden it's like, wow, this person is a good communicator. They're responsive. And they're also updating me on things that are critical to whatever outcome we're trying to produce. So I'll communicate right away. And then if I get a status update along the way without getting a full report on what I need to know, I'll give them that information. And I'm always keeping people abreast of information or status updates on what's being worked on. Here's the mistake I think a lot of people have, Carson. I work for somebody else and that person comes into my world and they give me a project. I'm going to report back to them when the project is done. First of all, most people don't do that. Unfortunately, which is that is not a promotable person. I'd never promote that human being. You can't communicate. We got a problem. But number two, what that manager really wants is some status updates along the way. So you should be asking yourself, if you were my manager and you made this request of wanting this thing from me in a week from now, I would ask you, it's like, well, let me ask you, would you like to get some updates along the way? And what do you think are the updates that would be most meaningful to you? And is there a frequency at which you'd like those updates? Some of you are thinking, Kris, what a waste of freaking time to freaking text, email, and communicate information to someone else on a project that's not even complete. And I'm like, quite the opposite. I look at every relationship as if it's a partnership that could be worth millions or billions of dollars. And how does my partner want to be treated? Well, the same way I want to be treated. This isn't trust, like, oh, I'll trust that you'll do everything and never talk to me hardly. No, it's the opposite. I'm going to earn your trust, which is something you need to do in today's world. How do I earn your trust? By agreeing to commitments, updating you along the way, and for sure letting you know when I fulfilled on that promise. What does that build? It builds trust. And when you trust someone, you can promote that person, you can work with that person, you can go further with that person.
Could throw a curveball at you.
Sure.
This one's a little bit personal.
Dude, hit me.
It's
right
it's
between the legs.
Kris, back when I was just your video editor, I hated giving you updates on video projects because I knew if I sent you a rough cut, you'd give me a laundry list of things to fix and your opinions on things before I had a chance to wow you.
Yeah.
And I was always like trying to race to get something done so that I could show it to you, a finished product, to wow you.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? Someone saying, "Hey, I don't want to give you status updates because if you look at it now, it looks like it's not working. But if you wait a week,
so let's back up.
I'll wow you."
Let's back up. Let's go back to micromanagement.
Yeah.
Micromanagement is what you do when you don't trust someone. Mm-hmm. When you trust someone, there's certain creative license I believe that they deserve to have. In other words, I, for example, don't want a company of yes people, and you shouldn't be a yes person. If you're just doing whatever someone's asking you to do, you are thoughtless, mindless, you're being rented like a cheap donkey up and down the hill. If you want to have better results in your life, you have to show that you will own your projects. So for example, in our company, anytime a project is given to someone, they're never just given a project that they have to say yes to. What you do is you bring listen carefully, a problem and say, listen, this is the outcome that we want, but how we get there, I don't know. That's up to you. That's why I hired you. And what it does is it allows them to buy in and create ownership. So if we were to go all the way back then, here's what my advice would have been if I had been your mentor on dealing with a hard boss like Kris. I would have said, hey, don't send them the rough cut, but use your words, or send text and just say, hey, I just want to give you an update. My deadline is this coming Friday. That's 3 more days, but I wanted to let you know I've completed the rough cut and it's coming together nicely. Tomorrow I'm going to finish putting on the bells and whistles. And by the way, I'm planning on giving it to you on Thursday a day early, because if you have some feedback, I would like to still have some time to make some tweaks so that by Friday, it's actually a fully vetted finished product. Dude, now you freaking look like a superstar to me because I see that you're taking ownership and that you're also in charge. When I hire someone, I expect them to say no to me. If they can't say no to me, then it means that I've hired a yes person and a no person that says, listen, if you really hired me to like take ownership and figure out how to do this thing, then you got to give me some space to do that. And I'm going to flex from time to time if you're overstepping boundaries. I also admire that. That tells me this person freaking knows what's up and down. But if you don't communicate with me, or worse, we get to the deadline and I don't like the outcome or the final product, guess what? You have not stood out from the crowd. You don't deserve a raise. You do not deserve to be promoted. You don't deserve upward mobility. You don't deserve to have your goals and dreams come through because you're missing a fundamental thing of being a responsible human being, which is taking ownership. And people that take ownership, they report out instead of someone asking for an update. So right now, just ask yourself, do you have people in your life right now, partners, children, church organization, work? Do you have people checking in with you looking for updates? And if the answer is yes,
you're doing something wrong.
There's a really good chance that your relationship of trust is weak.
For the record, the principle stands. And I loved your response, Kris. For the record, I always knew that no matter what version the video is in, I was going to show it to you and you'd have critiques. Yeah. I'd always planned time for that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if I ever told you that a rough cut was done and this happened once, you would be like, show me it. I'm like, hey, it's not ready. I want to add a few more things.
So then you learn, don't show them a rough cut.
And so, and Kris, you'd be like, show it to me. Show it to me. But no, that's true. That.
By the way, if you work for someone or with someone or have a manager that you have a hard time getting along with, that used to be me. Everyone had a hard time getting along with me. Fortunately, I've hired that out to far more brilliant people, which makes me and them happier because that is not my calling in life. But even if you have a difficult relationship that you report to, your goal should not be to sit at the watering cooler. Is that how they say it? Like ratting on, being angry at, passive aggressive, tattling, communicating frustrations. That is representing small-minded weakness in you as a human being. And here's why. Did you know that you're bigger than any circumstance you'll ever face? You should act like that. Whether it's a person or whether it's a really difficult trial. I don't even care if we're talking about murder and rape, like some of the most heinous crimes that have ever been committed. Don't let anyone take your power. Reclaim your life, and for what you can act on, do. Because if Viktor Frankl in a concentration camp says, fine, take my clothes, take my food, force me to do labor, do all of these things to me, but you still can't take my attitude. And his positive attitude is the only thing that saved his life. He admits that.
I legit just got chills. Standout habit number 7 was to report out. I really like the things we discussed, Kris. That's powerful. Standout habit number 8, innovate.
Innovate.
Which I think could open a can of worms. I want to hear your take on this. Innovate. This surprises me that that's on this list.
You know what? If you and I were born 100 years ago and listening to this podcast written on stones of tablet or parchment.
100 years ago, they were writing on stone. You're going to have to go back a little further, Kris.
A long time ago, we did not have a whole lot of enlightenment on this planet, so things didn't change very fast. This world we live in today, this is the fastest iterating version of life, technology, beliefs than we have ever seen before. And if you're not in the habit of innovating, which means to take something existing and make it better. If you're not in the habit of making things better, you get left behind. For example, you have a job and you'd like to get promoted. You should be asking, how do I make my services or my products more outstanding than they were 6 or 12 months ago? Because I promise you, the person on the other side of the world in China is stealing your content and they're going to try to create a one-up to better version of it. It sounded like I was picking up on China, but Wuhan, right? I mean, I swear those guys take some of other people's inventions and will freaking sell it on the market before anyone else gets a chance. I know because it screwed me out of $1 million on this one deal. But listen,
are you talking about the Latchy Catchy?
No, that was a different one. But I'm just saying that at the end of the day, you got to keep up. And who you were 6 months ago in most work environments is insufficient. But I'm going to go one step further. I want to actually share with you how I got my original raises before I quit my job while I was in college. Dude, I had this telemarketing job doing phone sales, and I survived it for a year. And don't get me wrong, I was actually pretty good on the phone, but it was hard, and every week was like starting over, and I was talking to people that really didn't want to talk to me. And dude, for being a young 22-year-old, there was something kind of rough about it. But because I was there a year, I had actually survived longer than most, and I said, hey, The trainer needs an assistant. Let me be an assistant trainer for reasons X, Y, and Z. And I promise you, like, you don't have to pay me anything. I will just do it for free and get all my sales in. Well, you know when you go to a company and you offer to create value for free, do you know what they usually say? Sure. Well, I did that for 6 months, and then I came to them, I said, hey, look at how I have, with metrics, with numbers, look at how I've made things better. Would you throw down an extra $500 a week on my salary for what I'm doing? And you know what they said? I was invoking the law of reciprocity, reciprocation. I gave first, and then karma, it can be a bitch, but guess what? It can also be a blessing. And it came around, and because I was giving all of this, it's called goodwill. It's when you're doing something or providing value at a pro bono level. I was actually building some rapport. Now, I wasn't doing this manipulatively fully, like I'm going to twist your arm and force you to give me a raise. It was just a natural byproduct that I thought had a high likelihood of going down. So guess what I did 6 months later? I found a department in the company that was underserved. And I said, hey, you know what? I went to my manager. I said, you know what? I think that I can help optimize some results over there. Do you mind if, as long as I get all my other responsibilities in, do you mind if I tinker a little bit and see if I can make some improvements? Guess what they said? Sure. 6 months later, I'd posted an extra $900,000 of annual revenue to the company. And I said, hey, do you mind if I get a little override on that, like 0.5%? And you know what they said?
Sure.
They said, sure. And so every 6 months I would find the next project in the company, and I was innovating, but I was ahead of the curve. I wasn't being asked to innovate. Don't wait for anyone to tell you that you're supposed to make things better in life. For example, let's say that you fell in love. What's more glorious than falling in love? But you want to know how people fall out of love? They expect that effortlessly that everything will always be that way. Come on, dude, everyone goes through a honeymoon phase, and then eventually you open your eyes both wide open and realize, crap, there's all sorts of problems with this train wreck of a relationship, and there's baggage, and there's all this crap I got to deal with. I got news for you. When people fall out of love, most situations I look at them and I say, why did you make that choice? Like, choice? It just happened. Just like falling in love. Bull crap. Are you kidding me? Well, when are you gonna wake up and take responsibility for your life, dude? You fell in love. You showed up to the party. You did the things. You danced the dance. Like, that's on you. So there is no falling out of love. There was, I forgot to innovate. I forgot to continue courting and saying, can I make this thing even better than it once was? Dude, this is not maintenance mode. This is not, let's just kind of keep up and even Steven. This is about 6 months from now, dude, my marriage better be stronger and better and healthier than it was then. Because here's the truth. Everyone is within 6 months of divorce. 6 months is all it takes to screw up, forget, not show up, make mistakes, and then all of a sudden, guess what? Everything that you had built is over. And I just got to say this, dude. Divorce is painful to children. It's painful to relationships. Everyone has to make their best of it. Some people, frankly, it ends up being a blessing in hindsight, but it's an expensive. Everyone can agree that it is expensive if you have something to lose. So best thing you can do is innovate in your relationships. Your goal should be, I'm going to make this freaking relationship. If we're cloud 8 right now, we're going to be cloud 9 next week. I'm going to effort myself to make this thing better than it was. Do that in every part of your life. Do that in your health. Do that in your body. Do that in your muscles. Do that in your nutrition. Do that in your cardio. Do that in your marriage. Do that with your children. Do that in your church callings. Do that in all parts of your life. And guess what? You will be growing, and you'll look back and you'll say, I've got fulfillment because I love my freaking life. My life's the best. Everything goes my way. Does everything go your way, or does it just seem like you're getting lucky because people that work hard seem to have luck on their side?
As I think about people in relationships, it's really interesting, Kris. I mean, how many people do we know that when they start dating someone, suddenly they start behaving different? They've got a bounce in their step, and they show up different. And if we're defining innovation as improving, optimizing, doing things better, then yeah, every relationship starts off with innovation because you're putting your A game out there and you're showing up more than ever before.
Well, and Carson, that shows up in entrepreneurship in a really big way. The most successful entrepreneurs take problems and solve them, or they take existing products and make them better. And if you look at the Fortune 500 companies, most of them didn't create some novel, amazing thingamabob. What they did is they took where society's evolution had left off, and they said, I wonder if there's something unoptimized in the marketplace that would be appreciated. And then they produce that thing. And by the way, the bigger the problem you solve, your results, your rewards are disproportional. You will be rewarded in such insane ways. So by the way, if you don't like what your financial reward is, all it means is that you're not solving very important problems.
Talk to me about this. Your reward will be
Disproportionate.
Talk to me about that.
Dude, reverse it. It means that it's exponential.
Right.
It means
But
that
how?
it means that if I solve a really small problem, oh, my kid's bored, invent a fidget spinner. There's a million knockoffs, right? Like if I go door to door spelling fidget spinners, I'm not going to get rich. But if I can take boredom and say, VR. Get this virtual reality system and I will freaking addict you to a world that doesn't exist. It's an insane value proposition. And guess what? Those companies are being disproportionately rewarded with insane levels of growth. So again, you can solve small problems in life or you can solve big problems. I think we should all be efforting to solve the biggest problems that we can.
So
when the pandemic hit, guess what I did? I was like, oh my gosh, I've been freaking waiting for a recession. About time. 2008 was the last one. I got pumped because I said, look, in just one day with an announcement from the White House, we have big, massive, huge problems. And that means that we need huge solutions, and whoever can solve them, they will be disproportionately rewarded.
Okay, when I think about people who stand out of the crowd right now in America, in the world economy, Elon Musk comes to mind.
Jeez.
And I heard a statistic.
Yeah.
His Tesla is worth more than all of the other American automakers combined.
Crazy, isn't it? So insane.
He's doing what nobody else is doing.
This kid invents his first like video game software program at 12 years old and basically says, I'm going to make sure we can live on the moon and we're going to Greenpeace it out with self-sustaining vehicles all over the world. And if you look at everything he's doing, he's an amazing futurist because he's solving problems a decade or two ahead of their time. And when he starts and announces these projects, everyone looks at him like he's a fool. But he has the vision to see far enough ahead to say, I may be a fool today, but if you wait 5 years, if I can dare to be so audacious and bold as to find a way to raise money for something that people hardly perceive as a problem today, I will be the most outstanding, biggest winner of them all.
Talk about being early.
Yeah.
Okay, standout habit number 9, and this is the crown jewel. This is the final
Last one, right?
The last of the 9 habits that will come out in this book of
A
yours.
habit, by the way, that is designed for employees or people that work with people, because this one is a freaking burden.
Gosh, and yes, I am loving that we're about to talk about this. Keep your personal drama and victimhood out of my workplace. This sounds a little calloused, a little cold.
Oh, it sounds so insensitive. But listen, it's not like if something bad happens to you, dude, tell your coworkers or tell your employees, get the help or support that you need, get some of that. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking to the people that have chronic drama. They're living on Dramamine. They are freaking every day something is happening. I recently started doing some business with an individual that, and this is the way I look at it, and I want you to all think about this. This is practical advice. How many of you can think of someone right now that comes to mind that you've known for a long period of time and you can remember the first point of drama? When it first came up, you probably weren't thinking, oh my gosh, this person's always doing this. You were thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened to you. Oh my gosh. Because you're like, we're new in our relationship and something happened. It sounds tragic and I feel sorry for you. And then a month later, something else happens. Like, oh my gosh, are you the unluckiest person on the planet? How?
It happened
this times
twice?
2. This is big. Well, by the 6th time, you're starting to feel like an idiot. Like, wow, I buy in so deep into that person's drama. And you know what? I just got to stop, because here's what drama does. Drama absorbs your biggest asset, time. And then it feasts on your next biggest asset, money, which is the universal unit of trade for bartering system to basically make exchange happen with resources all over the world. Drama is I think probably my biggest core value in my entire company, which is we don't do drama. And with that comes another rule. I'm just going to throw it in as a bonus. We don't do passive aggressive. You own a business, take notes on a couple of these rules. We don't do drama. We don't do passive aggressive. Passive aggressive is when someone has a problem with another person and can't talk about it. And so what they do is they talk about it to other people behind their backs. And before you know it, it's like, why is there all this weird, funky energy where we're not really compatible? There's no unity. Like the teamwork feels really broken. Dude, that's because you have a problem with tolerating drama and you get what you tolerate. So I just put my foot down. I say, I'm sorry. By the way, when something real happens to you in your life, we will show up. I promise you that we'll care. But the moment you have an epidemic, a problem where you can't stop having problems, I'm going to start really getting to the bottom of the reality, which is you create this garbage but I get that you can't see it. And I'm sorry, but those are not the people that I'm going to hang with, because how are we supposed to be productive? How are we going to create? How are we going to build? Here's what I'm really saying, because it does sound heartless. But I have found, this is my own personal made up statistics based on my own life experience, that if you have 5 employees and one of them is negative, that has a lot of drama going on, the energy from the other 4 get canceled out. They feel less joy, less fulfillment. They don't enjoy being in the workplace as much. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, why does it suck to work for my company? That's because you let someone in that shouldn't be there. Rule number 1, dude, if drama's chronic, we got a problem.
Get the right people on the bus.
Yep.
Kris, how do you recognize it in yourself? Right? Like, I think I've met people that are drama prone and they seem to get a lot of enjoyment out of talking about what's wrong.
So
but if I were to tell them, you're a drama queen, they'd be like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I know. No, they can't.
And then they'd go home and be like, do you know what they said to me?
First of all, great book everyone should read, also by the Arbinger Institute, is Leadership and Self-Deception. It's a fantastic book about the drama that we create that we can't see. It's our blind spot to how we co-create and participate in the creation of our own victimhood. And it's a really fantastic book. Arbinger Institute has written like 2 other follow-up books on the same topic. And I think they use this analogy. It's like, think of a baby. The baby's 1 year old, has just started learning to crawl. The baby is insistent on crawling underneath the coffee table. But the problem is the coffee table is just at that height that the baby will hit its head on the coffee table each time. So the baby, learning to crawl, wants to go under to grab a toy, and just like a monkey putting its hand in the trap for the banana, the baby smacks its forehead, cries, gets upset, and then does it again, and then does it again. Because the baby doesn't know what it doesn't know. One of my mentors taught me the most dangerous, I paid $1 million to this mentor. He said, the most dangerous information to you is what you don't know. And worse is not knowing that you don't know. So when you ask this question, how do you identify it in yourself? Here's the first real question. Think of the last thing bad that happened in your life. Are you able, first of all, who you're pointing the finger at? Who's responsible for it? Is it the government? Is it that friend? Is it that person? Is it a spouse? Is it a child? Like, who are you pointing the finger at? If you can take the finger and point it at yourself and say, what was my part in this? And if you're capable of seeing some, but preferably all of your part in its co-creation, that's how you break the pattern of victimhood that you don't know is coming from within. And by the way, we all got it. I got victimhood. Like, things happen to me at times that I'm like, wow, I'm really upset about that. I don't like that. Guess what? I'm upset. No one can make me be upset. Punch me in the face. No one can make me be upset. I'm responsible for my feelings. Victimhood happens when we refuse to see or take accountability for our part in something. So really, everyone's got drama to some extent. The question is, you as an organization, you as a family, what are your rules on boundaries? And so if I have someone that has this victimhood issue, I'm going to give you some practical advice. The first thing that I do is, nothing is really a pattern until it happens twice. So the first time it happens, I like to show up. I'm compassionate. I try to be consoling. I try to help if I can, but I'm watching. If this thing happens a second time, our second conversation is going to look different. And it's going to be about, do you see your part in this? Why do you think this keeps happening to you? And if someone can't see that, they're ultimately not going to fit into my culture. We hire that stuff out before people can even infiltrate and come into our organization, because we've learned from some pretty painful lessons that the cost of that energy, it is toxic, and it can bring an organization down. It can bring its revenues down. It can bring morale down. And dude, at the end of the day, in today's world, dude, who wants to work for a sucky organization long term?
Crowds, 9 habits to stand out with 100 times bigger results. That is the working title of the book.
I got to say one more thing, man.
It should be coming out.
If you have crap that happens, does it mean you have to keep it a secret from your employer or from the people you work with? No. What I'm saying is that you should create healthy boundaries. If you're going to share it with them, make sure that you have a productive purpose in sharing it. For example, here's what a role play might look like, Carson, if it were unproductive. Oh, Carson, my dog is so ill right now, so sick. and I have to be home right now. I got to make sure he goes to the vet. And then if anything happens, I need to be there. I can't really work on these projects right now. Can you please give me some extra time? Like if that were to keep happening over and over again, but on a more severe level, that would get under anybody's skin. Like, geez, like this is a mindset thing. But a productive thing is, hey, real quick, boss, my dog came down with some kind of illness, some kind of sickness. I got to run to the vet. It's going to take me 2 hours. I'm working on lining up a sitter that can take the dog the rest of the time, or I'm going to drop it off otherwise so I need a couple hours. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay 2 hours late tonight. I'm going to get all my work done. I'm still going to hit all my deadlines. Is that okay? Like one,
yeah, that's a 100% different conversation.
No. One is I'm taking responsibility, and one is I'm asking you to I want you to suffer because I have a problem. Don't do that to people. No one loves to be around people like that. No one likes to be around people like that. Like, own your stuff, solve your stuff. If you need to ask for help, do it responsibly. Not, I'm putting it on you, you solve my problems. It's like, hey, I might need some flexibility, or I'm looking for advice, or shoot, even if you're looking for money, ask for money responsibly.
I love this topic, Kris, because now more than ever before in the world, it is harder to stand out from a crowd than any other time in history.
But
right?
You know what? I would argue it's actually easier. I would argue right now it's never been easier to stand out. Do you know why?
Why?
I think that we have one of the most blessed generations. I think, however, that this generation has lost something from previous generations. And usually if you're working for someone else, they're older than you. They probably come from the other generation. They probably still value work ethic, working hard. They value these things. But I'm telling you, the reason why it's so easy to stand out today is because a lot of millennials don't get this. This is like, whoa, these are like, and I don't want to sound condescending, right? I don't want to sound condescending, but I'm saying, unfortunately, tons of people are blind to most of the habits that are actually talked about here. So I'm like, are you kidding me? Dude, being a millennial, Gen Z coming up, this has never been easier to stand out. I'm giving you like a special roadmap that will make it so easy for you to literally look and smell and act different than anyone else. Of course you're going to stand out because they're making it so easy if you can just live these 9 habits.
This is great.
By the way, it is called Crowd Standing Out, how to stand out with 10x results. How to literally get 10 times more than the next person just because you've cultivated character that allows you to be more productive, more positive, more enjoyable, someone that people want to spend time with, someone that's edifying, someone that is so much more capable.
So in review, the 9 habits are: be early, respond quickly, follow through, have integrity in what you're going to do, be positive, always be growing, create solutions, report out, innovate, and last of all, keep your personal drama and victimhood out of the workplace.
And Carson, let me tell you what this book is really doing. It's helping you solve for current employees and entrepreneur problems. One of the problems today is that these habits are a forgotten art by most. So if you pick them up and if you live them, you will stand out and you will be rewarded with greater opportunities. That's really what this is about. This is not just how to be more functional or have more unity. This is how to grow. This is how to excel. This is how to have the universe open doors that it can entrust you with that lead to far greater opportunities. Because I believe that living in this manner exposes you to far above average opportunity. That's how you win bigger in life. By the way, beyond winning bigger or having achievement bigger, it's just being a happier human being. That's what this really is. It's just a roadmap for saying, yeah, I achieve more, maybe I have more, but beyond all, I really like who I am more. I love my life. And that's at the end of the day on my deathbed, you know what I really want to say? I want to say I loved my life.